Are you feeling the burnout from constantly churning out content? Do you find yourself stuck in a never-ending cycle of tips and tricks, searching for trends, jumping from expert to expert to expert, hoping that someone will have the right and magic solution for you? Because let's be honest, we're not about giving up around here, and someone has to have the answer. If that's you, you are not alone. In this episode, we're going to explore why you might be getting burnout with your content creation efforts and how to break free from the endless cycle of newness and creating something new. And before we jump into the episode, if this podcast has helped you in any way, please rate it and review it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It is really the best way to support the show, help it grow, help it spread the message. I am so thankful for each one of you, everyone who has left a review already, and everyone who's excited for what we're doing around here. So thank you so much, and I cannot wait to read your review. Welcome to Creator to Leader. Are you struggling to connect with your ideal customers online? Are you confused about the most effective way to market your business? If you're ready to become the go-to expert in your industry and stand out from the crowd, this podcast is for you. Hey, I'm Eugenia. That's Eugenia in Spanish, but you can call me E. My mission is to help entrepreneurs stand out online so that they can grow their businesses. I do this through comprehensive marketing strategies, impactful content plans, and storytelling leadership. We both know you are running on caffeine and big dreams, so let's dive right in. So now that we're here and ready to dive deep, let me share a little story that might ring a bell for some of you. So a few years back, I launched my podcast, Fairly Bold. It was my third podcast. I was pumped. I was so passionate about it. And here's the twist. After 8 months, I hit a wall. I was so burnt out. And I know that that's not news for some of you, but it's a story that has some ups and downs, just like life. And that's where I want our journey today to kick off. So this was me. I was so excited. It was the COVID era. Everyone was pivoting. Everyone was trying new hobbies. We were just philosophizing. I don't know if that's the correct word, but we were just philosophers thinking about life and what's the purpose and what do I want to do. So you started seeing all of those financial planners turned fitness coaches, the whole thing. It was amazing. And I kind of wanted to jump in the pool because I feel like when you make big changes in the middle of a big transition, if you fail, then you're just part of the collective. It feels great. You're doing it as a community. So it was a huge time of transition for everyone. It was 2020. And in the female space, I was seeing that every message of empowerment for women was around behaving more like a man. Like that was the message that was being promoted. So basically, if you were being feminine, if you were being empathetic, if you liked the color pink, if you valued family, or anything that sounded too feminine, you were not considered empowered enough. And I now say this, and I know it sounds crazy, but that was the reality of 2020. Like that's where we were by the time the pandemic hit. So I decided to create a podcast for high-achieving women who wanted to leave a mark in this world without letting go of their femininity. So on the podcast, I explore the intersection of power and femininity. I was very interested about it. And I wanted to define femininity beyond this caricature of the 1950s housewife. I wanted to push some boundaries, right? I said some things that at the time offended a few people. And by the way, fast forward years later, I now have friends that are reaching out to me saying, girl, I now get it. Like I keep going back to your podcast. Exploring my femininity has helped me so much in my relationships, in my career. So thank you. I was right. Okay, but I digress. Needless to say, I was passionate about the topic of this podcast. And I did have a vision for it. But after 8 months, I was burnt out. I was exhausted. And I was very confused because I thought that if I created valuable content, people would just find it and they would make me a star. And this sounds so cringy. And I'm so happy that I don't have to look at you in the eye as I said this because that was my thought. Maybe I was in denial, but looking back, that's what I wanted, right? I was going to create incredible content and then people would find it and that was it. Like that was my plan. That was my strategy. And by the way, I'm so thankful for my husband during that season because he was so patient with me. And, you know, he was so supportive, but he also helped me see that I was acting almost like a bird trying to build a nest in a hurricane. And in reality, you need a clear plan with a strong tree. Like you need roots, you need foundation. Like my plan was not very strategic, like not my proudest moment, I have to say. And I had two main problems. One, I was not being clear what the podcast was about. So I didn't understand messaging because messaging and marketing strategy, they are not exactly the same thing. And at the time, I thought that content creation was completely different from marketing. Meaning, I was working as a marketing project manager during the day, and at a nonprofit, we were raising thousands of dollars. We were growing so much. But then my creator hat, right? When I arrived at the mic, I felt that it was a completely different game. It sounds crazy now that I say it, but it was this feeling of, oh, no. Marketing is for corporate. Now I'm a creator. It's different. Big mistake. I was completely wrong. So, of course, the podcast wasn't growing. It wasn't doing bad, but it wasn't growing. And I was really passionate about this message, right? And this is something I wanted to do full time at the time, being completely honest. And my content, I had the podcast and then I had the content on Instagram, and that felt so heavy to create because I did not understand how to translate what I was building on the podcast to social media. And I knew that audiograms, and that's what I did. So I don't know if you know what audiograms are or if you remember. I don't really know if people are doing them at all anymore. But it's these posts that are kind of a picture, and then they have a little wave sound with your voice, like they go to the rhythm of your voice. And that's how people promoted podcasts. And they were kind of successful. Now I don't really see them a lot, even though you technically can still do audiograms. But that's what I was doing. Those posts were not bringing me listeners. I was also doing a bunch of lifestyle content, but the lifestyle content was not connected to the topic of my podcast because, again, I was like, well, maybe people will just fall in love with my personality and then they'll find my content and then they'll go to my podcast, which is about something completely unrelated. So creating content for Instagram felt like a whole separate job. So we had the problem of the messaging, we have the problem of the content creation, and then we had the biggest problem, which was the production issue. And the production issue was part of a consequence of my messaging issue. So the production process became extremely exhausting. I'm not lying. Each podcast episode took me about 8 hours from planning to posting. I was doing that every single week, on top of trying to build a presence on Instagram. So obviously, what happened is that I started getting desperate. So 8 months in, I started creating random episodes because they somehow related to quote unquote female empowerment, but really there wasn't a clear line. And because of the exhaustion, because I was really just trying to create this content, I lost sight of my vision. I was just like, let me provide value. Then let me offer value for women around femininity and about empowerment, and that will be enough. And it was a lot. It was so disjointed. And that's part of why today I'm so happy that I have a production team with Rich Higher Media, with Compass Sound Express, that they are the best editors in the podcasting game. So they have really transformed my podcasting journey. But going back to the actual story, I have to say that there was a happy ending to that at the time, because after those 8 months, I decided to pause for a month. And I relaunched the podcast, reframing the messaging so it would be clearer. So I stopped and I said, okay, I was working at the time with a client that was a marketing messaging expert, mixing storytelling with marketing, and my eyes were opened, my perspectives were expanded. And that was the first time where I mixed my marketing with creativity, kind of mixing art and science for the first time. And I launched the second season of the podcast. And I have to say, the results of that launch were pretty amazing. We ranked on Apple Podcasts, not only in the US, but in 4 other countries, including Venezuela, which is my home country. And that was very impressive because it was a podcast in English and people in Venezuela were listening to it. So I was pretty excited. I mean, I was stuck. But since I didn't address the second issue, the one about content production, right? The one about planning and making something sustainable, I quickly fell back to burnout. Because yes, I had the marketing piece, but now how do we address the content piece, right? I was still thinking about providing value. And to be fair with myself, I had never heard or experienced the difference between this how-to content, which is, the value, and thought leadership content. Those were really foreign concepts to me. So after a couple of months, that second season of the podcast fell through the cracks. And I was so disappointed in myself. And I'm starting to see a theme on today's podcast, by the way. I am really happy that I'm not saying this to your face because this is another cringy moment of my podcasting journey. That whole situation made me convince myself that I was better off behind the scenes, making other people's podcasts grow. I wouldn't even call myself a marketer. Right now, I'm so proud to call myself a digital marketing and branding strategist. I'm so happy and excited to mix art and science. But at the time, like right after that podcast, I would never. I was like, I am not a good marketer. I'm not a good person in front of the mic. I have to just do it for other people. Never on my own. I'm going to grow other people's personal brands. Never my own. I'm going to help other people with their Instagram, with their content, with their podcast. Never my own. And I was working with amazing CEOs. I really now look back and I'm like, holy moly, I've worked with incredible people. But in my mind, I was not built for this. That burnout stage of my life, I would say lasted for almost a season. Like it was not good. It was not pretty. I felt comfortable, really. Like I was able to feel comfortable for a couple of years. I was able to grow podcasts, the top 1% of the ranking globally. I was working with huge personal brands in the top 0.05% of the charts, like la creme de la creme. Pardon my French. I was coaching clients that were making well over 6 figures and helping other newer entrepreneurs launch their ideas into the world. Never me. Never me. It took me so long to get out of this. And everything because I had burnout. I had lost confidence in myself and I wanted to hide behind the scenes. I wanted to play small. So, what did I learn from this roller coaster experience? Well, it turns out that valuable content alone wasn't the magic formula I thought it was. And I'll be sharing with you today why chasing trends and relying on endless tips and tricks isn't the path to impactful content. It's about developing a clear methodology and expanding on what you already believe in. It is not about creating new trends and new tips and tricks. Just to give you a happy ending, fast forward to today, I can confidently say that the burnout taught me more than an online course or a big guru ever could. And hey, I love my courses, I love learning. I love my gurus, my mentors. I'm so thankful for them. But to be honest, that burnout experience, I know it in my bones. I know how it feels. And I know that you can have the best strategies, you can have the best tools. But if you're using the wrong approach, you are going to end up back in situations like the one I was in. And I know it's not pretty. And I know what it does to your self-confidence. So now I've not only rediscovered my passion but I've found a sustainable way to share my message. So now with that said, let's dive into the main tool I discovered for this experience. So first, what is valuable content? And it's one of those things that can be defined as anything and everything nowadays. It kind of provides some type of help or value to your audience's life. That's basically it. Think of valuable content as the quick and flashy magic trick at a magic show. They are exciting, they grab attention, but they don't always leave a lasting impression. In our context of what we're talking about today is like those quick tips, trendy topics, before and after pictures that provide instant gratification but might not create a deep impact. On the other hand, we have impactful content. And now we're back to the magician example. Picture this as the magician who not only performs the tricks, but also tells captivating stories that make you think, they make you wonder, they make you believe in magic. Impactful content is thought leadership. It's about sharing your unique perspective, your deeper insights, and inspiring your audience to take meaningful action. This type of content is sustainable because it's based on what you already know, what you already believe in. So it's so true and people can feel it. And I want to illustrate the difference by using an example because I want to walk you through this difference and I want to help you by the end of this episode. I want to get your wheels turning. And I think the best way to do it is by giving you a concrete example so we can get out of just like the theory and see how it looks like on someone's actual business. So let's say, for example, you are an interior designer. So your valuable content, right, which is what we are creating first, is around your area of expertise. So you are sharing the hot colors for the year. You are sharing tips to choose the right rock size. You are showing a lot of before and after pictures of your designs because you want your ideal clients to hire you. So that type of content starts burning you out because you have one reel, or maybe you have one TikTok that goes viral and then you hear crickets, or you have hundreds of thousands of views, but then no one wants to work with you. Or maybe you get a DM saying, how much for your design services? Like, that's it. They don't even say hi. And also, you always feel like you need to find something cool or trendy or viral. So that starts bleeding into your personal life. You start losing boundaries because you always have to be like this trend hunter online. And maybe you actually make it, right? Maybe you do get a few inquiries, but then after your video stops being viral, you're back to square one. So it's a trap, right? You're starting to feel the burnout. So you not only are feeling like this isn't sustainable, you at the same time, at night, like when you finally go to sleep, you're thinking about expanding beyond just decorating people's homes. Maybe let's say you have a bedroom in a week design service. That's your signature service. And you're looking to expand out of it. You want to reach more people. You want to impact more people. You want to now teach women to decorate their first newlywed home. How to blend their styles, how to make that first space go from empty to full of personality, which that matches and mixes both of you guys' personalities. And now that I think about it, this is the course I wish I had when I first got married, by the way. So in addition to that, right, you want to expand out of this one-on-one service of where you build a bedroom in a week and you want to start teaching women, on a larger scale. You also want to start speaking at conferences. Like, you are feeling this inkling on your soul and you feel like you're ready to expand your visibility and you're kind of curious about maybe that will bring more opportunities for your business, right? Like, you are ready to also venture into the unknown. And maybe interior design for you is more than just having a pretty space and cool pieces, right? Maybe you think and feel that it's about the peace we feel when we enter a home that feels like a sanctuary that fully represents the couple as a whole. Right? Maybe you think that the world is so saturated with messages and it's so fast-paced. So you think that all couples deserve to have that intimate and peaceful space. And maybe you think that they deserve to have the knowledge and the tools to create it and to grow with it, right? Like, you don't want to be just the person showing up, giving them good design in a week, and then a year later, they feel like the space is not growing with who they are, right? So you want to empower them so they can grow with their space as they change as people, right? So I love your vision. Oh my gosh, that's amazing, right? But then you have that vision and you keep posting this generic, quote unquote, valuable content because everyone keeps saying you to do that, right? Share value, share value, share value. And that has kind of worked in the past. So you continue posting about trends for the next year. You continue to post on choosing the best rug for your living room. And you, of course, need that credibility. And so you continue to post those before and afters. So I want to be clear, this is the first little parenthesis. This type of content that I call valuable content is not wrong. So I'm not saying that you should never post valuable content because you'll definitely see me and my clients use it. Like, if there's something happening online, if there's a conversation happening online, I might talk about it. Maybe I will make episodes on how to do X, Y, Z, but my content is not anchored or directed by this idea of value or what's trending. Maybe there's a trend, right? And I will infuse the trend with my own unique perspective. But I don't let my content be driven by what's trending or by what Google is telling me that people are searching for. If you continue to rely on this valuable content only, you are going to jump into express train to burnout land. I'm the president. I am not. I quit. I quit. I renounce my title of president, but I'm sure there's a statue in burnout land with my face on it. Okay. So in this interior designer example, you keep getting exhausted, right? And you're like, this is too much to keep with. I hate social media. I hear so many incredible, talented people say that. Like, I hate social media. I hate just like this content creation world. It's so overwhelming, blah, 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 blah. And you also have this vision that you're building. So you're also like dedicating time to that, right? Like, how would I build? Will this be a course? Would this be like a live event, a live retreat? What would it look like? You're exploring this vision as well. So you find this podcast and you decide that you want to try a more sustainable approach that not only feels light, but also helps you build your authority in the space. Because you want to also make sense across all of your platforms. You don't want to feel like you have to reinvent the wheel everywhere you go. You want it to make it cohesive everywhere. So you enter impactful content into the conversation. How could it look like for you in this interior designer example? So maybe you now start posting different angles of your vision and your why. So you are sharing about how creating this oasis that protects couples from the outside world, what's the impact? You show bits and pieces of your oasis and not how did I create it, just hey, look at what my oasis looks like for me and how peaceful I feel, right? Your morning coffee is not just random morning coffee, because I hear so many clients saying, I don't want to just post a random picture of my coffee. But in the interior design example, the coffee is not just the coffee, it's what the coffee represents, right? It is that oasis, it is that peaceful space that has allowed you, in the interior designer example, to create some peace for yourself in the morning. You also share inspiration, right, behind these oases that goes beyond furniture, right? Maybe you share about playlists that are inspiring you. And you also talk about cultivating that sense of peace in your relationship, because remember, you now want to talk to women that are newlyweds. So you are also talking about a little bit about cultivating peace in your relationship. Not because you're a relationship coach, you're not helping people with tips and tricks about relationships. You are giving them a bigger picture of peace in the home. And maybe you also define the 3 simple, unique steps that are part of your methodology. And this is what you keep using with your one-on-one clients. And you start sharing about it. So that means that you're not afraid that maybe you're sharing too much value for free, because you know that this points back to the bigger picture of the transformation of your unique methodology. So let's say, also, I'm just giving you so many ideas. So don't get overwhelmed to think that you have to include everything, right? But let's say, as this interior designer that you are in this example, you also love photography. So you love taking inspiration from different types of photographers. You've also been reading biographies about famous photographers. So you start sharing principles of photography on your content and how they apply to design, right? Or maybe you start sharing cool stories about a National Geographic photographer who went to war and what that experience taught him about peace. Because again, we want to talk about peace. That's your main core value that you want to showcase in your presence as a thought leader. So you now are building this thought leadership ecosystem. You start growing your personal brand and your business with your unique niche. We talk a lot about niche in the marketing space. And you are not entering a quote unquote saturated niche, because you are creating your unique niche. There is all these things about your brand and your business that are so unique that there's really no competition. Like, working with you is the only option if they want to get that vision. And people start joining your community not because they need a quick tip, not because they do it because they know that you're going to help them see things in this unique way. Like, they want to build their peaceful oasis at home. Like, that's what they are after. So you start getting leads that not only want a pretty room or what's the cheapest way I can get this decorated, but you start getting couples that are ready to build that intimate oasis. Let's say you also launch a newsletter, right? Let's say you share on the newsletter a lot about the mindset around building a home, right? Maybe you share your photography findings, and you don't have to do a lot of creation because that's part of what you naturally do, right? You love looking for photographers and you are just getting inspiring. Or maybe you also created a cool playlist, right? For when your readers are spring cleaning their homes, and you share your playlist of the quarter, once a quarter. There are so many things you could do and things that are natural to you. Like, if you're not a playlist person, don't think, oh my gosh, another idea I have to implement. No. That's not the goal of this at all. The goal is just to give you ideas of how you would transition your content from just these valuable tips and tricks and what people are searching for to more impactful, that's driven in how you see the world, in how you see your industry, and the things that inspire you, right? And build this ecosystem of your brand. That is the difference between valuable content and impactful content. So now let's go very practical. How do you build this system for sustainable content? And let's dive into some practical tools and some practical strategies to help you start this transition. So first, you need to start by defining and leveraging your existing knowledge and beliefs. And for that, go back to episode 2 because we go way deeper into finding your unique perspective. I have a very great exercise for you, but this is so important. Like, Don't feel like you have to be David Copperfield, always coming up with new tips and tricks to impress your audience. Choose those key perspectives and go deep with your perspective. Give yourself permission to explore your mind and explore your ideas. And if you find cool tips and tricks along the way, that's awesome. You can incorporate them, but then you're not just trying to actively find something cool all the time. Trust me, this will help you avoid burnout big time. And I want to share also some people to follow and some people to get inspiration from. And these are people that I've directly worked and learned from. So I can tell you that they are the real deal when it comes to sustainability in your content. And these are 3 people that I love, and just to get your creative juices going. And you're going to see how they've created their own ecosystem and their own unique voice and their own thought leadership. So that's pretty cool. So first we have Santi from Osiera Creative, and she's so incredible at helping you build and lead a community for your business on social media. Like, that's the thing, community leadership. Of course, super on brand with me. I love her. And she, in my opinion, is changing the social media landscape because she's going back to connections, which is what social media was created for. Then I also recommend Kim and Chris from the Business Lounge, and I'm linking everyone below. And they are the best at simple content systems that sell. To me, they're the go-to for get it done type of guidance. And if you want to do content that's searchable, I would tell you to go and learn from them because I think they are the only people that are doing it right. And probably, and I know this is a bold claim, but I've really read a lot of people's content and I've watched a lot of people, and I think really they are the best because they not only help you create this random searchable content, but they help you infuse your thought leadership. They have an amazing way. They have an amazing system. So if you want your system to be set up, you cannot go wrong with them. And then if you understand Spanish, I highly recommend Leonardo Garcia. He's a strategy. He's a marketing expert. He's worked with both personal brands and commercial brands, and he's living in the future of branding and communications. So to me, he's my go-to resource for staying up to date. And he's not necessarily the person that's going to give you the cool trends or songs that are trending on Reels. That's not his vibe. He's more about how to think about digital marketing and personal branding as a whole. If you follow Seth Godin, I would say that Leonardo is that type of creator, that type of leader, the person that's going to help you think differently. Lastly, my last tip for today, if you want to avoid the burnout cycle, make sure you're building longevity in your content creation. Meaning, choose where you're going to put your focus for now. Don't try to be everywhere. Don't take this podcast and be like, oh, amazing. I'm going to be all over social media. I'm going to have a blog, a YouTube channel, a podcast, a newsletter. Like, I'm launching everything next month. No, choose a focus for now. So here's your challenge for this week, or try it for a month if you're up to it. 3 simple things I want you to try. First, choose your 3 unique perspectives that you're passionate about sharing in your thought leadership content. Only 3. Only 3. If you're like me, you're crawling out of your skin. You're like, what do you mean only 3? I have so many things to say. I feel you. I'm the same way. Choose only 3. Then, number 2, you're going to dive deep into these perspectives. So we're not going to go wide, try to talk about everything. We're going to go deep into those 3 unique perspectives. You're going to explore them from different angles, right? Let's say in the interior designer, one of your unique perspectives is that you deserve to have a home that's a peaceful oasis outside of the noise of the world. What can you say about this? What does that mean? Like, go deep, sit down, piece of paper, journal session, great music, your favorite beverage. Go down, explore it from different angles. And if you need a visual for this 3rd step of your challenge of the week, imagine that you're turning a diamond. You're discovering more beauty and more depth with each angle. That's what this challenge is all about. You're uncovering the richness in your unique ideas. And if you're into art and you go see a painting, there are people, I'm medium, I'm not an expert by any means, but I definitely, if I see a good painting, I can spend 10, 15 minutes looking at it because there's so much to see in that painting. Like, there's so much meaning, so much richness. So try to do that with your perspectives. Instead of trying to see, more content, more ideas, more. Let me get these 3 perspectives and go deep. Please feel free to share your progress and your discoveries with me on Instagram. You can find me at eugenia.wu or via email. That's contact@eugeniawu.com. I love a good ongoing email conversation. It feels like a pen pal. I truly am here to support you every step of the way. I want to see you get over the burnout because I was there. I understand how that feels. I understand what that does to your confidence. I believe that if you're listening to this podcast, you have something too important and too impactful to share. I want to see you own your authority. I want to see you transform the lives that you were meant to transform with the things you are passionate about. I want to see you do that in a simple way, in a sustainable way, in a way that gets you more creative, more aligned, and also, obviously, more profitable. I cannot wait to hear from you. See you soon. I hope you loved this episode. If you connected with the podcast in some way, please rate it and review it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That is the #1 way you can support the show. And because sharing is caring, share it with a fellow entrepreneur wanting to become a leader, not just a creator. I am so grateful for you. I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me a DM over to @eugenia.wu. That's @EUGENIA.WOO. And if you only send me a microphone emoji, I will know that you stayed till the end. Thank you for listening. See you soon.